The beeping machines cut through Caleb Ridge's skull like rusty nails. His eyelids felt heavy as concrete, but he fought to keep them still. Every breath burned. His ribs screamed with each shallow intake. The 4-tube in his arm pulled tight when he tried to shift, but he didn't move. He listened. Everything is going according to plan. Breyer's voice floated through the antiseptic air. Sweet. Concerned. The same voice that used to whisper "good morning" against his neck. Caleb's heart monitor stayed steady. Years of Army training kicked in. Control the breathing. Control the pulse. Stay invisible. She's too clueless to notice. That was Tamsin, his mother-in-law. Her voice carried that sharp edge it always had when she thought she was winning something. The brake line work was clean, a gruff voice added. Thad, Tamsin's husband. No one will trace it back to us. Caleb's blood turned to ice water, but he kept his breathing even. The machines kept their steady rhythm. How much longer do we need to wait? Breyer asked. Doctor said another few days, Tamsin replied. Then we can make the decision about life support. Tragic accident. Loving wife forced to let go. Their footsteps moved closer to his bed. Caleb felt Breyer's hand brush his forehead, the same hand that used to trace patterns on his chest while they planned their future. You were always too trusting, baby, she whispered near his ear. Made this so much easier. The footsteps retreated. The door clicked shut. Caleb opened his eyes and stared at the white ceiling tiles. His mind raced back for the last 6 months, searching for clues he'd missed. 6 months earlier, Caleb had noticed the changes in small pieces. Breyer started working late more often. She'd come home with her hair different, her lipstick gone, claiming client meetings ran long. When he'd ask about her day, she'd give him one-word answers while scrolling through her phone. How was the Henderson project? He'd asked one evening, watching her heat up leftover pizza. Fine. She didn't look up from her screen. Thought you said it was giving you trouble last week. It got resolved. Her thumb kept swiping. Can you grab me a beer? He brought her the beer and tried to kiss her cheek. She'd leaned away like he smelled bad. Then Tamsin showed up with her suitcases and medical excuses. Mom's been having dizzy spells, Breyer explained, helping Tamsin carry bags into their guest room. Doctor thinks it might be her blood pressure medication. Tamsin looked healthier than most people half her age. She took daily walks, did yoga in their living room, and cooked elaborate meals that filled their house with the smell of herbs and garlic. But she needed to stay with them for observation. Within a week, Tamsin was answering their landline, sorting through their mail, and asking pointed questions about Caleb's garage business. How much did you say you made last quarter? She'd asked over dinner, cutting her chicken with surgical precision. Enough, Caleb had answered. Breyer mentioned you've been struggling with the books. Maybe I could take a look. I used to do accounting. I handle my own books. Tamsin had smiled. Of course. Just trying to help family. But the help kept coming. Breyer started taking over more of their finances for convenience. She moved their joint account to a new bank with better rates. She suggested putting the garage paperwork in her name for tax purposes. Every change came with reasonable explanations wrapped in concern. You work so hard, baby, she'd said, rubbing his shoulders while he reviewed invoices. Let me handle the boring stuff. He'd signed papers without reading them carefully. Trust came easier than suspicion back then. The weekend trip had been Breyer's idea too. We need to get away, she'd said on a Thursday morning. Just us. Remember how we used to drive up to the mountains? They'd packed light and left Saturday morning in his pickup truck. Breyer seemed more relaxed than she'd been in months. She'd held his hand during the drive and talked about places they should visit. For a few hours, she felt like his wife again. The brake failure happened on the winding mountain road coming down from their cabin. No warning. The pedal went straight to the floor when he tried to slow for a sharp curve. The truck picked up speed. Trees and rocks blurred past the windows. Caleb, Breyer screamed that he'd yanked the emergency brake and steered into the guardrail instead of the ravine. Metal screeched against metal. Glass exploded. The world spun and went black. Now, lying in the ICU with machines keeping him alive, Caleb understood. The brake lines hadn't failed. They'd been cut. 2 days passed before the night shift nurse noticed something wrong. Willa Vaughn was small and quick, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. She'd been working ICU for 15 years and knew when something didn't add up. She'd watch Caleb's monitors during visiting hours. His heart rate spiked every time his wife came through the door. His blood pressure climbed. His breathing changed. Not the response of an unconscious man. "Mr. Ridge," she whispered during her 2 a.m. rounds. The ICU was quiet except for the symphony of machines keeping people alive. "If you can hear me, blink twice." Caleb's eyes opened slightly. 2 slow blinks. Willa nodded and checked the hallway. Empty. She pulled his chart from the foot of the bed and wrote quickly. "She's trying to pull the plug. You got 1 shot. I'll help." She showed him the note, then tore it up and flushed the pieces down the bathroom sink. The next night, Willa came back with more information. "I checked your truck," she whispered while adjusting his 4. "My brother runs the impound lot. Someone cut your brake lines clean through. Fresh tool marks. And your wife filed a life insurance claim 2 days after your accident. $500,000. Caleb's fists clenched under the hospital blanket. "She's been asking doctors about brain death protocols," Willa continued. "Wants to know how long someone can be nonverbal before they're declared gone. She's setting up the timeline." Willa glanced at the door again. "I've seen this before. Husband comes in with suspicious injuries. Wife plays the grieving victim. Machines get unplugged. Case gets closed. Money gets collected." She leaned closer. "But not this time. Tomorrow night, we're going to kill you." The plan was simple. Willa would trigger a code blue during Breyer's evening visit. The crash team would work on Caleb for the required amount of time, then call it. Breyer would get her tragic moment. Caleb would get transferred to the burn unit under a false name while they figured out what came next. "You'll need to stay completely still," Willa explained during her prep rounds. "No matter what happens. No matter what she says." At 7 p.m., Breyer arrived with fresh flowers and red eyes. She'd been crying for the cameras in the hallway. "Hi, baby," she whispered, taking his hand. Her fingers felt cold. "The doctors say you're not getting better. They think maybe it's time." Willa entered with a syringe and headed for Caleb's foreport. She'd filled it with harmless saline, but the effect would look real enough. "I'm so sorry," Breyer continued, "but I can't watch you suffer anymore. This isn't what you would have wanted." The monitors started screaming. Alarms echoed through the ICU. Willa hit the code blue button, and a team of doctors rushed in. "What happened?" Dr. Morrison demanded, taking over chest compressions. "His vitals just crashed," Willa reported. No response to stimuli. Breyer pressed herself against the wall, sobbing into her hands. "Is he?" "We're doing everything we can," Dr. Morrison said. They worked for 23 minutes. Standard protocol. Caleb lay perfectly still while they pushed on his chest and pumped drugs into his system. He'd stopped breathing on command and let his body go limp. Time of death, 7:31 p.m. Dr. Morrison announced that Breyer's wails filled the room. "No, please, try again." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Ridge. We did everything we could." 2 hours later, while Breyer handled paperwork and made phone calls, Willa wheeled Caleb to a service elevator. His body was covered with a sheet, but underneath, he was very much alive. "Burn unit," she told the orderly. "John Doe. Transfer from the morgue." The burn unit was quieter and more isolated. Perfect for hiding someone who was supposed to be dead. Willa had arranged for a private room under the name John Davis. "How long can you keep me here?" Caleb asked once they were alone. "A few days, maybe a week. Long enough for you to figure out your next move." Caleb sat up slowly. His ribs still ached, but the pain felt different now. Sharper. Focused. "I need to contact someone. Someone Breyer doesn't know about." "Who?" "My oldest friend. If anyone can help me figure out how deep this goes, it's him." Jonah Kincaid answered his phone on the second ring. His voice carried the same steady calm it had during their Army days, back when incoming mortars were just another Tuesday. "Ridge Auto. This is Jonah. It's me." Silence stretched across the line. Then, "Caleb? Man, I heard about the accident. They said you were dead." "I know. We need to talk. In person. Tonight." "Where are you?" "Hospital." "Long story. Can you pick me up at the emergency exit?" "Backside of the building." 1 hour. "I'll be there." Jonah arrived in his old Ford with the engine running. He looked the same as always, Tall, lean, with graying hair buzzed military short and eyes that scanned everything twice. When he saw Caleb walking toward the truck, his face went hard. Jesus Christ, what happened to your face? Caleb's left cheek was purple and swollen. His right arm was in a sling. Briar happened. Her whole family happened. They drove in silence to Jonah's late father's hunting cabin, 20 miles outside Asheville. The cabin sat on 40 acres of woods with no neighbors and no cell tower coverage. Perfect for staying dead. Inside, Jonah poured 2 glasses of bourbon and waited for the story. Caleb told him everything. The overheard conversation, the cut break lines, the insurance claim, the fake death. Jonah listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail. How bad is it? Caleb asked when he finished. Jonah pulled out a manila folder thick with paperwork. Bad. I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. Started digging when I heard about the accident. He spread documents across the kitchen table. Bank statements, property transfers, business filings. Your garage business? It's under Briar's name now. Has been for 2 months. The joint account you thought had 12 grand? Empty. Closed yesterday. Caleb stared at the papers. His signature was on every transfer form, but he didn't remember signing half of them. The house, he asked, sold to an LLC called Mountain Property Holdings. Guess who owns that? Tamsin Holt, your loving mother-in-law. The sale went through this morning. Cash deal. No inspection. Almost like they knew it was coming on the market. Jonah flipped to another set of documents. Gets better. Remember that contractor's license you've been working toward? Someone's been using your name and social security number to apply for business loans. 3 different banks. Total exposure is about 200 grand. Caleb's hand shook as he read through the loan applications. His forged signature was getting better with practice. They didn't just want me dead, he said. They wanted to strip me clean first. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing, Jonah agreed. This was planned. Professional. Someone with accounting knowledge and legal connections. Tamsin. Had to be. Briar's not smart enough to pull this off alone. Caleb thought about his wife's sudden interest in their finances. Her late-night phone calls. The way Tamsin had inserted herself into every conversation about money. There's more, Jonah said. I pulled the property records on that mountain cabin where you had the accident. Guess who owns it? Let me guess. Mountain Property Holdings. They bought it 6 months ago, which means they've been planning this since Tamsin moved in. Caleb finished. They needed time to figure out what I had and how to take it. Jonah refilled their glasses. Question is, what do you want to do about it? Caleb studied the papers scattered across the table. His life's work reduced to forged signatures and fraudulent transfers. His marriage revealed as an elaborate con game. I want it all back, he said. Every dollar, every property, every piece of my life they stole. And Briar? Caleb's voice went cold. Briar gets exactly what she deserves. The next morning, Jonah drove to Caleb's house while Briar was at the funeral home making arrangements. The spare key was still hidden under the fake rock by the front steps. Some habits die hard. The house felt different, colder. Tamsin had rearranged the furniture and removed most of Caleb's personal items. His army photos were gone from the mantel. His workshop magazines had been cleared out. Even his coffee mug was missing from the kitchen cabinet. They were erasing him piece by piece. Jonah found what they were looking for in the basement office. Briar's old laptop, the one she'd replaced 6 months ago, was shoved in a cardboard box with other electronics headed for donation. Back at the cabin, Caleb powered up the laptop and dug through Briar's saved emails. Most were work-related or family communications. But buried in a folder labeled Trade Shows were dozens of messages to someone named Dane Aldridge. The first email was dated 8 months ago. Dane, great meeting you at the Charleston convention. Thanks for the drinks and the conversation. Hope we can continue this when I'm back in town. The emails got more personal quickly. Can't stop thinking about our dinner last week. You make me remember what it's like to feel excited about life again. Caleb doesn't understand me the way you do. He thinks small. You think about possibilities that I know this is complicated, but I can't pretend anymore. What we have is real. Caleb scrolled through months of messages. Dinner dates, hotel meetings, plans for a future that didn't include him. Then he found the folder labeled Austin Plans. Day Mom found a property management company that can handle the sale quietly. $2.3 million for the portfolio once everything's liquidated. We can get that house in Austin you showed me and still have enough to start the consulting business. The contractor's license came through. Amazing what you can accomplish with the right paperwork. We'll have access to commercial loans within 60 days. Caleb won't be a problem much longer. Mom has it handled. By Christmas, we'll be free. The final email was dated 3 days before the mountain trip. Everything's in place. Mom confirmed the brake work is done. It'll look like an accident on those mountain roads. Poor Caleb always drove too fast. I'll play the grieving widow for a few months, then quietly relocate for a fresh start. See you in Austin, baby. Our real life is about to begin. Caleb read the email 3 times. Each word hit like a physical blow, but he felt no sadness, no heartbreak, just a cold, focused rage that settled in his bones like winter. How long were they planning this? Jonah asked. At least 8 months. Maybe longer. Caleb closed the laptop. They met at a trade convention. He's a tech consultant. Probably taught her how to forge documents and manipulate financial systems. Where's he now? Austin, waiting for his blood money. Caleb stood and walked to the window. Outside, the woods were quiet and still. But that's not our priority. We need evidence that'll stick in court. What kind of evidence? The kind that puts all 3 of them in prison for the rest of their lives. Caleb remembered Ronelle Bray from high school. She'd been 2 years behind him, a quiet girl who ran track and studied hard. Now she was Deputy Bray, working for the county sheriff's department and building a reputation for thorough investigations. Jonah made the call from a payphone at a gas station outside town. I need to meet with Deputy Bray, he told the dispatcher. It's about the Caleb Ridge case. Are you family? Close friend. I have information about the accident. An hour later, Ronelle met them at a diner on the highway. She was still small and intense, but she wore her uniform with authority and her eyes missed nothing. Jonah Kincaid, she said, sliding into the booth across from them. Heard you were back in town, and you must be the dead man everyone's talking about. Something like that, Caleb replied. Ronelle studied his face. You look pretty good for someone who died 3 days ago. Funny what modern medicine can accomplish. She smiled slightly. I've been wondering about your accident. Brake failure on a truck you maintain yourself? Seemed odd. Caleb pulled out copies of the financial documents Jonah had gathered. How about fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder? Ronelle spread the papers across the table and read carefully. Her expression grew more serious with each page. This is a lot of money moving around, she said finally, and some very convenient timing. Check the brake lines on my truck, Caleb suggested. I'm betting you'll find tool marks. Already did. Clean cuts. Professional work. Ronelle looked up from the documents. But proving who did it is going to be harder. What do you need? Something that directly connects them to the crime. Confession. Recorded conversation. Physical evidence placing them at the scene. Caleb thought about Willa's information. The night nurse at the hospital overheard Breyer asking about brain death protocols. Before the accident. That's good. What else? My wife's been in contact with her boyfriend in Austin. They've been planning this for months. Everything's documented in emails. Ronelle made notes on a small pad. I can't promise anything. The Holts have connections in this county. Tamsin's been donating to politicians for years. What about the FBI? Jonah asked. Insurance fraud across state lines? Yeah, that might work. Ronelle closed her notepad. But you'll need more than emails and financial records. You'll need them to incriminate themselves. How? Get them talking. On tape. Make them think they've won. Caleb sat back in the booth. An idea was forming. Dangerous, but possible. What if I came back from the dead? The video was simple. Caleb sat in the cabin's living room with Jonah's camera pointed at his face. No fancy editing. No dramatic music. Just a dead man telling the truth. My name is Caleb Ridge. If you're watching this, it means I'm probably dead for real this time. 3 days ago, my wife Breyer, her mother Tamsin Holt, and her stepfather Thad Holt tried to murder me. He held up the financial documents. They've been stealing my assets for months, forging my signature. transferring my property, using my identity to take out fraudulent loans. The camera stayed steady as Caleb explained the brake tampering, the insurance fraud, and the plan to pull his life support. He showed the emails between Breyer and Dane Aldridge. He read their plans for Austin. I have copies of everything. Bank records, property transfers, email communications, audio recordings from the hospital. All of it will be released to the media and law enforcement if something happens to me. He looked directly into the camera. To Breyer, Tamsin, and Thad, you made one mistake. You thought I was too trusting to fight back. You were wrong. Caleb uploaded the video to a secure server with instructions to send it to local news outlets and the FBI field office in Charlotte if he didn't reset a timer every 72 hours. Dead man's switch. If they killed him again, the truth would come out automatically. Then he called Willa. I need one more favor, he said. Can you get Breyer back to the hospital tomorrow night? What for? Tell her there's been a mistake with the paperwork. Something about the life insurance claim. She needs to sign additional forms. And then what? Then I walked back into town. The next evening, Caleb dressed in his old work clothes and drove Jonah's truck into Asheville. His funeral was scheduled for the following day, but tonight he had a different kind of resurrection in mind. The hospital parking lot was half empty. Visiting hours were almost over. Caleb walked through the main entrance like he owned the place. The desk clerk glanced up, did a double take, then reached for her phone. Don't, Caleb said quietly. Just watch. He took the elevator to the ICU. Through the glass doors, he could see Breyer at the nurse's station with Willa, arguing about insurance forms and documentation requirements. Caleb pushed through the doors and walked toward them. Breyer saw him first. Her face went white. The clipboard fell from her hands and clattered on the floor. Hello, wife, Caleb said. Breyer's scream echoed through the ICU corridor. Several nurses looked up from their stations. A doctor dropped his coffee cup. That's impossible, Breyer whispered. You're dead. I watched you die. Funny thing about death, Caleb replied. Sometimes it doesn't stick. Willa stepped back and crossed her arms. She'd been waiting for this moment. You cut my brake lines, Caleb continued, his voice calm and level. You forged my signature on financial documents. You filed a fraudulent insurance claim. And you tried to have my life support disconnected. I don't know what you're talking about. Breyer's voice was shaking. You're confused. The accident you planned, with your mother, and your boyfriend in Austin. Breyer's eyes darted toward the exit. Caleb stepped sideways, blocking her path. Where's Dane? He asked. Still waiting for you in Austin? Still planning to spend my money? Caleb, please. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Hospital security arrived, but Willa waved them off. Family matter, she explained. Under control. Caleb pulled out his phone and showed Breyer the video he'd recorded. This goes public in 60 hours unless I stop it. Your choice how this ends. Breyer watched herself reading the emails aloud. Her face crumpled. How did you? I trusted you, Caleb said. That was my mistake. But it's a mistake I'll never make again. The next morning, Caleb's funeral proceeded as scheduled. Word had spread quickly through Asheville's tight-knit community. The church was packed with friends, co-workers, and customers from his garage. Breyer sat in the front row, wearing black and dabbing her eyes with tissues. Tamsin and Thad flanked her, playing their roles as the grieving family. None of them had slept the previous night. Pastor Williams gave a generic eulogy about Caleb's service to his community and his dedication to hard work. People shared memories of his mechanical skills and his willingness to help neighbors in need. Then Breyer stood to speak. Caleb was the kindest man I ever knew, she began, her voice breaking convincingly. He gave everything to the people he loved. He trusted completely. He never saw the worst in anyone. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the congregation. Caleb's army buddies nodded. His customers wiped their eyes. He would want us to remember him with joy, Breyer continued. He would want us to. The church doors opened with a loud creak. Every head turned. Caleb walked down the center aisle wearing his best suit and a cold expression. The congregation gasped. Someone screamed. Pastor Williams dropped his Bible. Breyer stumbled backward from the podium. No, this isn't happening. Caleb reached the front of the church and turned to face the crowd. "Sorry I'm late," he said. Traffic was murder. Tamsin was frozen in her seat, her face gray as ash. Thad half stood, then sat back down heavily. "For those of you wondering," Caleb announced, "I'm not actually dead. Close call, but I got better." He looked directly at Briar. "Turns out my loving wife and her family tried to kill me for my money. Brake lines don't cut themselves." The church erupted in shocked murmurs. People pulled out phones. Someone called 911. "The insurance company will be interested to know that my widow filed a claim before checking if I was actually dead," Caleb continued. "The FBI might have questions about the financial fraud, and the district attorney will definitely want to discuss attempted murder." Briar tried to run, but Caleb's army friends had quietly moved to block the exits. 20 years of military training doesn't disappear just because you hang up the uniform. Deputy Ronell Bray arrived with backup and federal agents from Charlotte. The arrests happened quickly and quietly. Tamsin for conspiracy and fraud. Thad for vehicle tampering and attempted murder. Briar for insurance fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. The paperwork took longer. Caleb filed emergency injunctions against all property transfers and business sales. His lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Hendricks, had spent the previous night reviewing the financial documents and preparing legal challenges. "The house sale is invalid," she explained to Caleb and Jonah. "Forged signatures void all contracts. The garage business transfers are equally fraudulent. We'll have everything back within 30 days. What about the loans they took out in my name? Fraudulent debt. Banks will have to eat the losses. Your credit will be restored once the criminal charges stick." The evidence was overwhelming. Willow provided audio recordings of Briar's conversations about life support protocols. The garage mechanic who'd examined Caleb's truck testified about the deliberate brake tampering. Financial experts traced the money flow from Caleb's accounts to properties owned by Tamsin's shell companies. Most damaging were Briar's emails with Dane Aldridge. Prosecutors read them aloud in court, documenting months of planning and premeditation. The defendants didn't just attempt murder, the district attorney argued. They committed systematic financial fraud designed to strip the victim of every asset before killing him. This was a calculated, cold-blooded scheme motivated entirely by greed. Dane Aldridge was arrested in Austin trying to board a flight to Mexico. His laptop contained additional emails discussing the timeline for Caleb's death and plans for laundering the stolen money through real estate investments. The case made national news. "Dead Man Walking" headlines ran in newspapers across the country. True crime podcasts dissected every detail. Caleb ignored all interview requests and focused on rebuilding what had been stolen. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Caleb attended every day, sitting in the front row where Briar could see him. He never spoke to her, never acknowledged her attempts to make eye contact. He simply watched justice unfold with the same patience he'd once used to diagnose engine problems. That Briar's defense attorney tried multiple strategies. Temporary insanity, emotional abuse, financial desperation. None of them stuck. Mrs. Ridge was trapped in a loveless marriage, the lawyer argued. She felt she had no way out except through deception. Patricia Hendricks destroyed that narrative during cross-examination. Mrs. Ridge had access to divorce courts, she pointed out. She chose attempted murder instead. She could have left with her share of marital assets. She chose to steal everything and kill her husband instead. On the final day of testimony, Briar took the stand in her own defense. She wore a conservative blue dress and spoke in a soft voice about feeling trapped and desperate. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt," she testified. "I just wanted out of the marriage." Caleb was controlling. He wouldn't let me make financial decisions. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Under cross-examination, her story fell apart. "You sent 47 emails to your boyfriend discussing your husband's death," Patricia noted. "And how many of those emails did you express regret or reluctance?" I was confused. I wasn't thinking clearly. "Were you confused when you forged his signature on property transfers?" "No, but were you confused when you filed the insurance claim?" "That was different." Were you confused when you asked medical staff about brain death protocols? Breyer's voice got smaller. I was trying to understand his condition. 2 days before the accident. You were trying to understand brain death protocols 2 days before the accident that put him in hospital. Silence. Mrs. Ridge, did you love your husband? Yes. Did you respect him? Yes. Did you trust him? Yes. Then why did you try to murder him? Breyer broke down crying. You don't understand. I was stuck. He was pulling me down with him. I needed to be free. When the prosecution rested, Caleb was called for impact statement testimony. He walked to the witness stand and faced the jury directly. Breyer Ridge was my wife for 6 years, he said. I gave her everything I had. My trust, my money, my name, my future. I bled for everything we built together, and she tried to bury me. He turned to look at Breyer for the first time since the trial began. She wants forgiveness. She wants understanding. She wants me to say I'm sorry for not seeing how trapped she felt. His voice stayed level and cold. But I don't forgive people who try to murder me. I don't understand greed. And I won't apologize for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. He looked back at the jury. She made her choices. Let her live with them. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Breyer received 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder and financial fraud. Tampson got 15 years. Thad got 10 years for vehicle tampering. Dane Aldridge received 12 years for conspiracy and money laundering. As they led Breyer away in handcuffs, she called out to Caleb. I'm sorry. Please. I never stopped loving you. Caleb walked past her without a word. 1 year later, Caleb reopened Ridge Auto under his own name. The garage was bigger now, with 3 service bays and modern diagnostic equipment purchased with the settlement money from his insurance company. Jonah ran daily operations while Caleb handled the complex repairs that required his expertise. Willa worked part-time, helping veterans navigate medical benefits and job placement services. Her office was in the back of the garage, next to Caleb's workshop. You're becoming quite the local hero, she told him one afternoon, reviewing applications from former soldiers looking for work. Don't want to be a hero, Caleb replied, elbow deep in a transmission rebuild. Just want to be left alone. That's not going to happen. 3 more reporters called this week. What did you tell them? Same thing I always tell them. Mr. Ridge is too busy working to discuss the past. Caleb smiled slightly. Good answer. The garage stayed busy. Word had spread about Caleb's situation, and customers came from across the state to have their vehicles serviced by the man who'd come back from the dead. He fixed their cars and trucks with the same methodical precision he'd always used, but people sensed something different about him now. Harder, more focused, less willing to give second chances. That he never remarried, never dated. A few women had tried to get his attention, but Caleb had no interest in trusting anyone with his heart again. He lived alone in a small apartment above the garage and spent his evenings reading technical manuals or working on his own projects. The money came back slowly but steadily. His house sold to a young family who appreciated the workshop in the basement. The fraudulent loans were dismissed by the courts. His credit score recovered. Within 18 months, he was debt-free and profitable. But the real satisfaction came from smaller victories. Veterans finding steady work. Customers getting honest repairs at fair prices. Building something solid that couldn't be stolen or forged or manipulated. On the anniversary of his fake death, Caleb installed a new sign above the garage entrance. Black letters on white background. Simple and direct. I built this with my own hands. BET on me next time. Jonah found him standing in the parking lot, admiring the sign as the sun set behind the mountains. Think that sends the right message? Jonah asked. Sends the only message that matters, Caleb replied. I'm still here, still standing, still building. No regrets. Caleb thought about that question. 6 years of marriage reduced to court transcripts and insurance settlements. Trust replaced by suspicion. Love replaced by cold calculation. Yeah, he said finally. I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. But I don't regret surviving. And I don't regret making them pay for what they did. He walked back toward the garage, where tomorrow's work was waiting. Behind him, the sign caught the last rays of sunlight and cast its message across the empty lot. Some graves are dug with smiles. but some men climb out of them. Caleb Ridge was still breathing.